What's up, guys? Nate back with another YouTube video, this time sounding better than ever now that I have a new microphone instead of using my questionable headset microphone. So anyways, I want to get into a set champs I did this last weekend here, which unfortunately did not go my way. And then we're going to go into what I am now going to call the Diablo tier list. So big thing about me, I had actually not ended up playing any Diablo decks before set 8. And I was just like, you know what? It's set 8. We're going to go through rotation. If Diablo makes it, I think a lot of people are going to be very upset. So I don't think he's getting reprinted in this set. So I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and give some decks that are actually playing the bird a try before they're at least gone until Infinity. Like, hopefully I'll get a DLC ticket to Indianapolis to go play Infinity and have a big reason to play Infinity. But if not, we're not going to see Diablo for a minute, right? Unless it's in Infinity format. So I wanted to give it a try. We'll go into the deck that I played this last weekend here, which was Green Steel. Boo. Yeah.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So obviously, as I just mentioned, I played Green Steel this past weekend. This is a list that my friend who is quite good at Green Steel gave me. And I had not really played the deck much. I put it a little bit on the Forbidden Fight Club thing that you're not allowed to talk about. And I've always just thought that, like, you know, it seems fairly straightforward sometimes, but it definitely, like, mulliganing with it has always felt the same in that it feels like you're mulliganing 3 different decks at once. And what I mean is you're usually looking for this Diablo shift line into the Cove. That's kind of like your God hand, right? But then you also have different ones where you're like, you need these Ursulas for certain matchups. You really want Prince John in other matchups. Morph into Beast is really, really important in different matchups. So you really just end up in a situation where it's like, if you know your matchups, you can really leverage that very hard. But it definitely felt like a very punishing mulligan for somebody who wasn't as familiar with the deck as I think other people are, you know. And obviously, my first time playing it in an actual tournament, I didn't have as many reps as I had, I guess, not really thought, but just didn't really feel comfortable on the deck or have the ability to leverage skill in ways that other people might. It's pretty hilarious to have kind of picked up. I was joking with a friend, picked it up sort of at the worst possible time to pick up Green Steel. Literally any other set, and you'd probably be in a good spot. But there is a card named Rhino, and he's very good against steel decks. And Green Steel, from what I've also felt too, is sort of you're really trying to leverage these songs of like Let the Storm Rage On and Strength of a Raging Fire. And when you don't have them, it does feel quite bad, because like that was the biggest thing that drew me to finally trying out the deck. Is I had enjoyed my experience with green purple discard so much that I'm like, you know what, it's got to be so good to be able to double sing your steel songs with Ursula and just make them discard their hand and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm like, I got to assume there's a reason why this was the boogeyman for like a long time, right? Overall, went 2 and 3 with this deck, and I'm going to go into some matchups, but we're going to try to make the matchups part quick because I want to go into the last part of the video. So round 1, I immediately get paired up into, the boogeyman.
And I am the devil from the Bible, so I don't know how.
Basically, I get paired up into Amber Steel aggro. And it was pretty hilarious, honestly, because I had built my comfort pick, which is Ruby Amethyst, to go with it because I wasn't completely sure what I was going to play on Sunday. And I ended up going with Green Steel because I really wanted the reference point and the kind of experiment of the whole thing. I think that Ruby Amethyst has a much better Amber Steel aggro matchup than Green Steel does, because the moment that I picked up these Green Steel Disney Lorcana cards and I saw that my opponent played a Rhino, I think my heart sank a little bit. I just knew it was going to be a long day. By the way, lost the die roll. I don't try to focus on that as much, but it is relevant, you know. I lost the die roll, and I was just like, it's gonna be one of those days.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
I did end up losing to this deck 2-0. It really did feel like Rhino was this just unavoidable, difficult to deal with character. And noteworthy that they had Vanessas and Troubadours in their build, so they were a little bit like higher to the ground, I would say. Very difficult for me to manage doing anything unless you have like kind of the right mix of songs and like ability to like beast and stuff like that. So just not something that like went well, and I kind of didn't expect to go well. My opponent, very strong player, but I did get 2-0'd. You know, there's not much to say there as far as that goes. Probably, again, another perfect example of maybe if I knew the deck better and I played it better, I could have leveraged my way through some of the games, but I just did not feel confident in anything that was going on there, and Rhino immediately punished me for making the choice of the deck that I did. So that was that on that matchup. Next, I played a good friend of mine who was playing a list very similar to the one I had just recently won with the weekend before, playing green purple discard. I had bodied all of the green steel players I played, and I kind of expected the same. The biggest thing that comes up is like their ability to Ursula you is so harsh compared to your ability to Ursula them. And I once again lost the die roll. It was the story of the day. I lost the die roll. But his ability to have evasive characters such as Peter Pan and Genie and Iago also just made it so much more difficult for my Diablos to survive compared to his, which ended up leaving me in a spot where I just couldn't get out of the game state. Like game one, I think there was a chance that maybe if I had made some better trades when I had a Hidden Cove out, I would have maybe been able to pull through and control the board enough. Game two, I ended up drawing a pile of 2-drop Ursulas and 3-drop Ursulas and a 1-cost Diablo from my hand. And I ended up trying to Ursula him. I saw his hand with Diablo. It had Pull the Lever, Diablo Shift, and just a bunch of other solid cards. And then, of course, right after I Ursula him, the classic story, he drew the friends and sang it with his Diablo. And I promptly was destroyed after that. Not a lot to say. I never seemed to think that this matchup is actually good. I like in my head, I would project that like steel cards would be strong against things like Iagos and stuff like that. But overall, I was just getting bodied the entire way through this matchup, and I had beaten it the couple times I played against it. So maybe it really is for green purple rather than green steel. So those are things to think about. Obviously, this meta is kind of over, but you know, something to think about. So obviously, at this point in the tournament, I am 0-2-0-4. I had not won a single game and was in a very rough position. I kind of knew that I was just dead overall. I had rode up with my friend who did end up making top 8. Congratulations to them. But that just means that, you know what, you're just like, I can't just 0-2 and leave. I gotta thug it out and see if we get somewhere. So that's what we did here. I ended up playing against Steel Song. Their version did not have Rhino in it, and thankfully for me, they didn't have Rhino, because that actually made quite a bit of difference in my ability to sort of just overall play the game, honestly. Like if he had Rhinos, I probably was just as dead as I was the first round, even though I would say Steel Song, like actual Steel Song, is a better matchup for green steel because you have Ursulas that you can rip their hand with. I did finally win this game set 2-1. The biggest thing I would note here is that I won the match, but I actually feel like I still didn't enjoy my deck by the end of it. And that's where I knew I was like, green steel is just not the deck for me. It didn't feel like other decks that I'll talk about in a little bit here, in that even the times that you win, you feel like you're cobbling together a bunch of cards that don't always make sense, and it just sometimes you feels like you're trying to win with raw card power rather than like synergies and stuff like that. So I just don't think it was the deck for me this time around, but did end up beating this Steel Song player 2-1. Round number 4, I got paired into a Blurple player, and I feel like things could have been really back and forth on whether or not I end up winning or losing this matchup. I did end up winning it 2-1. My opponent, no, this is no offense to them, they just weren't particularly attentive to what was going on, so I feel like maybe if they had made some different lines, I probably even could have lost this matchup, to be honest here. The game 1, I did do a lot of very good discard things and was able to control their board and their hand perfectly. Game 2, I didn't really I wasn't able to control things as much, and by the time I got very close to it, I did end up losing just to random characters that you can't beat. Like his version even had Cogsworth, which has Ward, which is impossible to manage if you are playing green steel, right? Just you cannot seem to put things of the ward down unless they happen to exert them themselves. Not a lot to say here. Another example of like playing the deck and winning with it still didn't mean I was having fun with the deck. And I think that's the biggest thing to remember when you play any deck in Disney Lorcana is like you want to have some degree of fun, especially if you're not playing, I don't know, like let's say if you're not playing the most competitive event in the world, if you're playing a set champs, you know, and you went to just like play a deck to try something out, it's tough when you're not even having fun playing your sort of experimental deck out. You know, there like I could have played other decks and won or lost with them and probably had a better time. So that was really where I was at with green steel by the end of that one. And then we went into round 5. And like something out of a movie, in round 5, neither one of us is actually playing for top 8. We're just playing for the love of the game. But you know what? I play into Ruby Amethyst, and not just any Ruby Amethyst, because I haven't played this particular version of Ruby Amethyst in like 2 sets now. But this was a goat rabbit style of Ruby Amethyst. This is where you're playing snakes and goats and rabbits and Sisu and Maui and all the good stuff that we played for so long. And you couldn't write it any better than that, right? Is I just pull into this thing that I wished I was playing. I even said before Set Champ started that I was going to play original Ruby Amethyst. The only thing he wasn't doing that I would have probably done was play Queen's Castles as like an ode to one of my favorite cards in Queen's Castle. But I go against this and I get 2-0'd by OG Ruby Amethyst, and it was one of the best times I've had getting 2-0'd just for the sheer irony of it. I've played the matchup on the other side a bunch of times, and there wasn't much that I was feeling like I was able to do, but my opponent was very fun to play with. We kept joking the entire time. I kind of explained my circumstances there, because like, what are the odds, right, that you like try something and you don't have faith in your deck or whatever. It's not even not have faith in your deck, but you just like, you choose something different even though you should have just picked the thing that you enjoyed the most, and you get paired into that thing and it beats you up and you just go, yep, this is like borderline poetic, hilarious time. That capped off my 2-3 run, and I was just ready to watch my friend in the top 8 for sure by the end of it. But I had a good time playing against them because, you know, all you can do is just go, yep, this is what's happening. Thanks a lot, Lorcana. There were definitely matchups I could have had during this tournament that maybe would have given me better odds, but not in the room I was in that day. So just a little bit of irony to cap it off for sure. So set champs aside, I did have a lot of fun playing there, despite my record being pretty poor, because I was surrounded by teammates and friends, which is always nice. You know, nothing better than, if you're gonna be sad at a card game, you might as well be sad at it while talking with your buddy who is gonna help you either by making fun of you or make fun of the situation, and that's all you can do, right? So now I want to go into what I am calling the Diablo tier list. This is, you know, what's the best bird. The only deck I didn't end up playing that would play Diablo was a green-red version of it, so I can't speak too heavily on that. I did see one at the last tournament I was at, and they looked like they were having fun, but they were also on the same tables close to me, so do with that information whatever you will. I do love me some red cards, but we didn't play them this time around. So, obviously, the deck that I won with is like up top and maybe one of the highest things that I would play again. It was very enjoyable, lots of good engaging experience, and lots of agency in your deck. You know, I mean, I high rolled quite a bit, but the deck has always just been a very solid performer, even for other people I've heard always talk about it. It is the deck, like this was the Diablo deck, right? Oops, all Diablos, basically. Very strong strategy, lots of good evasive threats, things that you can like help you deal with different situations. That was the biggest thing about this deck, was your ability to draw cards and then draw answers to different things was like really impressive and just really fun. So like both on the draw and on the play, I just felt like I had so much agency and so much fun playing this deck and would be happy to pick it up again for sure. That's obviously the top tier. In tier 2 of the tier list here is actually green yellow discard. While this deck did not perform so well for me, I did 203 with this deck as well. I did have quite a bit of fun because your wins feel really good and then your losses feel kind of close sometimes. I love that this deck feels a little bit like every board state that you're trying to break up and turn into something good for you is sort of a puzzle, right? You have to like shrink something a little bit with like painting the roses red or lost in the woods, and you have to be able to answer that and bounce that with muses. Do you get value off of your card or their card with muses? There are so many interesting things that you do with this deck that even when losing, I was like, you know what, I'm still having fun and interesting and engaging gameplay with it, and that's what really matters when it comes to playing a Disney Arcana deck at the end of the day. You can't always win every tournament. You know, you're gonna 2-3 a handful of times, especially if you're me, right? So having a deck that gives you a lot of agency all throughout the game was just quite fun and interesting, and definitely made it interesting to play Prince John in Diablo again. And I was having a lot of fun, and I would definitely run this back in the future if it's something that becomes viable in like Infinity or something. It was quite fun to play, and quite just like the big word that comes to mind is engaging. Now, obviously, I spent a lot of time crapping on green steel here with good reason. This deck just didn't do the things that I needed it to do. I know that all of the cards feel quite powerful. All of your little mini strategies in your deck feel quite powerful, and I think if I had had the reps in the games on this deck, I would feel like maybe it was a lot better. I personally just didn't overall enjoy my experience. Like I said, even the games that I won didn't feel particularly fun. There are very strong things that this deck can do, and things that I get why people loved this deck, and I also get why people hated this deck, right? Like, to play against, when the deck works, you just body their hand, body their board, and then you just quest slowly but surely to get the win. I definitely felt like my opponents were sad whenever I beat them, but I also felt kind of sad beating them. You know, like, it's just one of those things where like the deck doesn't feel particularly climactic. You know, you don't have the explosiveness as the green purple deck, or sort of always the puzzly nature of the green yellow deck that I felt. It just kind of felt like you either had it or you didn't have it in this deck. So not something I would run back anytime soon, even if I had the option to personally. But I have this for reference now. I have this as an experiment I performed and played. I played 5 rounds of Swiss with this green steel deck. I know what I would be getting into if I ever tried to play it again. That's going to bring us towards the end of this video and the end of Reign of Jafar Set Champ season. Overall, I'm pretty happy with getting at least one playmat out of it. I did get a couple top 8s, so I did hit my rhythm kind of towards the middle and end here. And then obviously played a deck that was not ideal for me. Kind of ended on a little bit of a sour note, but we got a little bit more tournaments going on, one of them being in Minnesota here. We're going to have a tournament that is sets 5 through 8 with confirmed reprints, so it'll be kind of close to that post-rotation format, which will be pretty exciting. Then here in Minnesota, we have a 2-year anniversary event where there's going to be some different kinds of like seal draft. There's going to be Core Constructed for the main event and Porcana for the main event of day 2. So there's actually a lot of really cool, exciting stuff going on before Fabled actually releases, and then Fabled will happen, and then that is going to be where I'm going to like really lock down and lock in, right? I need to try to get there because I do have a ticket to DLC Milwaukee, and I would like to do quite good. So I got to do some serious testing, really pick decks objectively, work hard to understand kind of the new format and the new lines you have to play around, and then see where we go from there. So hopefully we can do quite well with that. Otherwise, that is going to sum it up for this video.